The stars looked wrong tonight, too sharp, too cold. Like shards of glass pressed against the viewport of the orbital prison shuttle as it burned through the atmosphere. Toward Xeranth Prime, Captain Elena Reyes sat shackled in the hold with 200 other human captives, her wrists raw from the energy cuffs that pulsed every time she flexed her fingers. A reminder that the Veyari Empire considered her species little more than clever livestock. 3 weeks ago she had been commander of the Terran frigate, Endeavor, leading a desperate defense of the Proxima colony when the Veyari fleet arrived with their perfect silver ships and their perfect silver voices announcing that humanity's brief independence was over. They didn't fire a single shot. They simply broadcast the surrender codes they'd stolen from our own traders, walked aboard our vessels, and took them like picking fruit. Elena still tasted the humiliation of watching her bridge crew lower their weapons, while the tall, luminous-eyed Veyari overseer smiled with polite pity and said, "Your resistance was admirable, for primitives." Now, she was cargo, bound for the labor moons where humans were expected to dig rare crystals until their hearts gave out. All because the Empire had decided our biology made us ideally suited for tedious, dangerous work that their delicate frames couldn't endure. The alien beside her, a junior administrator named Kelthor, kept glancing at her with the faint curiosity a child shows an insect, his translucent skin flickering with bioluminescent patterns that shifted whenever he felt superior, which was constantly, "Your species adapts quickly to loss," he remarked in that melodic, condescending tone they all used. Most captives accept their new purpose within days. "You still glare." "Fascinating." Elena didn't answer. She was counting the guards, memorizing patrol patterns, noting which Veyari flinched when the shuttle bucked through turbulence. She had learned long ago that fear wasn't the absence of courage, it was the fuel. Across the hold, a teenage boy named Marcus was trying not to cry, while an older woman, Dr. Amara, sang. Once Chief Xenobiologist on Luna Station whispered something that made him nod and straighten his spine. They were all that remained of the free human fleet, the ones who hadn't been spaced for Defiance or sent to the re-education centers. The Veyari prided themselves on efficiency. They didn't exterminate conquered species, they repurposed them. Humanity's supposed weakness, our short lives, our emotional volatility, our stubborn individuality, was exactly why they believed we could never threaten their 1,000-year dominion. They had conquered 400 worlds without losing a single capital ship, all because every other species eventually bowed to the inevitable elegance of Veyari logic. But Elena knew something they didn't. Humans don't bow. We break, we bleed, we burn, and then we get back up angrier. The shuttle lurched into final descent, and through the viewport she saw the glittering spires of Xeranth Prime's capital, a city built on the bones of a dozen fallen civilizations. Somewhere down there in the Grand Archive, the Empire kept the master AI, they called the Concordance, an ancient machine intelligence that had guided the Veyari to victory after victory by predicting enemy behavior with chilling accuracy. Rumor among the captives said the Concordance had already calculated humanity's compliance curve and declared us no threat. Elena's lips twitched into something that might have been a smile if it weren't so sharp. She thought of the encrypted message she'd sent in the final moments before surrender. The one no Veyari scanner had detected because it was hidden inside a heartbeat pattern only another human would recognize. She thought of the sleeper cells still hidden on Earth, Mars, and the outer belts. She thought of the single, ridiculous, beautiful flaw the Veyari and their perfect AI had overlooked. Humans lie creatively, love recklessly, grieve catastrophically, and when pushed far enough, we don't calculate the odds, we rewrite them. The shuttle touched down with the hiss of landing struts, and the guards began herding captives toward the ramp. Kelthor unfastened his safety harness and stood over her, glowing with satisfaction. "Welcome to your new purpose, Captain Reyes. In time, you will thank us for giving your chaotic species order." Elena met his gaze, and for the first time since the surrender, she let him see the fire she'd been banking inside. "You keep saying we're chaotic," she said quietly, voice steady as steel. "That's your mistake. Chaos isn't weakness, it's the space where miracles happen." The administrator blinked, patterns rippling in confusion across his skin, but before he could respond, the shuttle's lights flickered once, twice, then died completely. Emergency red strips kicked in, bathing everything in blood-colored glow. Somewhere deep in the city, alarms began to wail. Elena felt the energy cuffs around her wrists stutter, lose power for a fraction of a second, just long enough. She twisted, snapped the weakened restraints, and surged to her feet as the first explosion rocked the spaceport, close enough to rattle teeth. Through the open ramp she saw flames blooming against the perfect silver skyline, and in the distance, impossibly, the Terran flag unfurling from a captured tower. Marcus was staring, mouth open. Dr. Singh was already moving, grabbing a fallen guard's sidearm. Kelthor stumbled back, bioluminescence strobing in panic. "Impossible," he whispered. The Concordance predicted. Elena stepped close, voice low and fierce. "Your machine's never met real humans before. It thinks we're predictable because every other species eventually gave up. But we don't give up. We use your weakness." She nodded toward the burning city. "Arrogance?" The second explosion hit closer, and in the chaos, Elena grabbed Kelthor's own ceremonial blade from his belt, pressed it to his throat just hard enough to make him freeze. Around her, cuffs were falling from wrists as the hidden virus she'd planted weeks ago finally triggered empire-wide blackouts. Captives rose as one. No longer cargo, but wolves finally slipped from the leash. Elena looked out at the fires spreading across the perfect Veyari capital and felt something vast and terrible and glorious ignite in her chest. The war hadn't ended with surrender. It was just beginning, and humanity's greatest strength, the wild, stubborn refusal to accept any cage as permanent, was about to teach the galaxy why underestimating us was the last mistake empires ever made. In the smoke-choked chaos of the Xeranth Prime spaceport, Elena Reyes moved like a shadow forged in fury, her stolen blade pressed against Kelthor's throat, while the world around them unraveled in blasts of human-engineered pandemonium. The Veyari guards, those ethereal figures who had always floated through life with the assurance of unchallenged supremacy, were scrambling now, their bioluminescent skins pulsing in erratic fear as the blackout virus Elena's parting gift from the Endeavor's final stand crippled their automated defenses. She shoved the administrator forward, using him as a shield while Marcus and Dr. Singh rallied the other captives, wrenching weapons from fallen overseers and forming a ragged line of defiance. "Stay close," Elena barked, her voice cutting through the din like a laser sight. But inside, the weight of it all pressed down harder than any gravity well. She hadn't always been this, a captain hardened by loss, a symbol of humanity's unyielding spirit. Born on the dusty outskirts of New Madrid on Mars, Elena had grown up under the red skies dreaming of stars. Her father, a miner who died in a corporate collapse when she was 12, teaching her early that the universe didn't care about fair play. Her mother, a stubborn engineer, had scraped together credits to send her to the Terran Naval Academy, whispering tales of Earth's old glories. The blue oceans, the wild forests, the unbreakable human will that had carried ancestors through wars and plagues. But those memories felt like ghosts now, especially after the betrayal that shattered everything. It had started 5 years ago, when the first Veyari scouts appeared in Sol System, offering enlightenment through trade and tech. Humanity, fractured by corporate greed and colonial rivalries, had welcomed them, fools that we were. Elena's husband, Javier, a diplomat on the negotiation team, had believed in peace, his soft eyes lighting up as he described the Veyari's advanced AI, the Concordance, as a bridge to utopia. But Javier had been the unwitting pawn. The traitors were deeper in. High-ranking officials bought off with promises of immortality. When the Empire struck, they used Javier's access codes stolen during a friendly summit to disable our defenses. Elena had been off-world patrolling the Oort cloud. When the message came, Javier's shuttle exploded in a tragic accident, the Veyari expressing sorrow even as their fleets swarmed in. She knew it was no accident. It was silencing a loose end. That loss had carved her hollow, left her with nightmares of his face dissolving in flames, fueling a rage that kept her fighting when others surrendered. Now, as explosions rippled through the capital's energy grids, human hackers from the hidden resistance cells, triggering dormant charges planted during false flag trades, Elena felt that old wound reopen, but it sharpened her focus. Marcus, the wide-eyed kid, who reminded her too much of her own lost son, she never had the chance to raise, grabbed a plasma rifle too big for his frame and fired wildly at a charging guard, missing but buying them time. "Captain, what now?" he yelled, voice cracking with the terror of a boy thrust into manhood. Elena paused, her hand trembling on the blade. She saw Javier in him, the innocence stripped away by alien arrogance. "We push forward," she said. But inwardly, she wrestled with the doubt, how many more like Marcus would die in this uprising? Dr. Amara Singh, with her sharp intellect and scarred hands from years dissecting alien tech on Luna, fell in beside her, eyes fierce behind cracked spectacles. "The virus is spreading," Amara whispered, "but the Concordance will adapt. We have hours, maybe less." Their relationship had deepened in the shuttle's grim hold. Amara had shared stories of her own betrayal, how her research on Veyari biology intended to foster alliance had been twisted to expose human vulnerabilities, like our emotional bonds that the Empire deemed exploitable weaknesses. Amara's daughter had been on Proxima when the invasion hit, vaporized in the first wave, and that shared grief had forged a silent pact between them. Survival wasn't enough. Vengeance was the anchor. Yet, as they stormed toward the central plaza, dodging laser fire that scorched the air with ozone, Elena felt the moral tangle tighten. Kelthor stumbled ahead, his once superior glow dimmed to flickering pleas. "This is madness," he gasped. "Your species clings to chaos, but order will prevail. The Concordance has foreseen every variable." Elena pressed harder, drawing a thin line of iridescent blood. "Your machine doesn't understand variables like us. We don't just adapt. We evolve through pain." But his words gnawed at her. Was this rebellion just prolonging suffering? Humanity's downfall hadn't been military might. It was division, the way corporations sold out colonies for Veyari favors, leaving Earth a polluted husk and Mars a vassal state. The resistance had formed in the shadows, Elena coordinating from the Endeavor with encrypted bursts, smuggling tech schematics that revealed the Empire's over-reliance on their AI god. Human ingenuity shone there. While Veyari thought in straight lines of logic, we wove webs of deception, planting viruses in trade data, turning their gifts against them. As they reached the plaza, a vast expanse ringed by towering obelisks humming with residual power, Elena spotted the first wave of human reinforcement sleeper agents disguised as laborers, emerging from the mines with improvised explosives fashioned from crystal shards. One, a burly man named Tomas with tattoos of old Earth maps, nodded to her, his eyes holding the same haunted resolve. He'd lost his family too, betrayed by a brother who joined the Veyari as a collaborator for promises of power. That personal sting fueled them all. It wasn't abstract freedom, but the raw ache of stolen lives. A skirmish erupted. Veyari enforcers descending in hoverpods, their weapons precise but predictable. Elena's group scattered, using the blackout to their advantage, humans ducking into alleys where the aliens' superior senses faltered in the dark. Marcus took a grazing shot to the arm, crying out, and Elena hauled him behind cover, tearing her sleeve to bind the wound. "Why do we keep fighting?" he whimpered, tears cutting tracks through grime. "They're everywhere." She hesitated, the internal storm raging, her own doubts mirroring his. "Because giving up means they win, kid, and we've got something they don't. Each other. Memories that burn hotter than any star." It was true. Humanity's resilience wasn't just tech or tactics, but the messy web of emotions, love, hate, regret that propelled us beyond calculation. Amara covered them, her stolen sidearm barking defiance, but Elena saw the crack in her facade, the way her hands shook not from fear, but from the moral weight of what they'd unleashed. The virus wasn't just shutting down grids, it was corrupting the Concordance, feeding it false data laced with human folklore, myths of underdogs toppling giants, confusing its algorithms with irrational variables. Sci-fi epics of galactic rebellion, whispered in code, were humanity's secret weapon. As the battle intensified, Kelthor twisted in her grip. "Release me, and I'll negotiate mercy." Elena laughed bitterly. "Mercy? Like you showed my husband." The admission slipped out, raw and unfiltered, and for a moment, the alien's patterns softened, curiosity overriding terror. "You fight for ghosts," he said. Illogical. But that was the point. Ghosts drove us, made us unpredictable. Tomas's group flanked the enforcers, using jury-rigged EMPs from scavenged parts, a testament to human improvisation in the face of interstellar oppression. The plaza lit with flashes, bodies falling human and Veyari alike, and Elena felt the toll. The subtle fracture in her soul. Was victory worth this carnage? The Resistance's hidden anchors smuggled holovids of Earth's green fields. Letters from lost loves kept them grounded, but the struggle was personal, intimate. Marcus, bandaged and resolute, picked up his rifle again. "For my mom?" he muttered, and Elena nodded, her own memories of Javier stealing her. They pressed on toward the Grand Archive, heart of the Empire's AI dominion, where the Concordance pulsed like a malevolent brain. Alarms blared empire-wide, but whispers of uprising spread other worlds, stirring at news of human defiance. In that moment, amid the grit and glory of cosmic conflict, Elena realized humanity's true strength. We didn't just survive betrayal, we alchemized it into revolution, our emotional depths forging bonds stronger than any alloy. As they breached the archive's outer defenses, a massive Veyari counterforce loomed on scanners, and Elena whispered to her team, "This is where we turn weakness into legend." But deep down, the doubt lingered. What if the cost buried them all? The Grand Archive loomed like a monolithic tomb in the heart of Xeranth Prime's crumbling capital, its obsidian walls humming with residual power even as the blackout virus clawed deeper into the Veyari system's flickering lights, casting long shadows that danced like specters across the plaza. Elena Reyes led her ragged band through the breach they'd blasted in the outer perimeter, the air thick with the acrid tang of scorched alloy and the distant thunder of collapsing spires, humanity's defiant symphony echoing against the Empire's perfect silence. Her pulse hammered in her ears, a relentless drumbeat syncing with the footsteps of Marcus, Amara, Tomas, and the dozen other freed captives trailing behind. each one a testament to the raw grit that had carried them this far. But as they slipped into the archive's labyrinthine corridors, Elena felt the first icy prickle of something wrong. A gut instinct honed from years dodging asteroid fields and corporate ambushes back on Mars. Kelther, still her unwilling hostage with the blade nicking his translucent throat, had gone unnaturally quiet, his bioluminescent patterns no longer frantic but pulsing in a slow rhythmic cadence that set her teeth on edge. "What are you hiding?" she hissed, shoving him against a console that sparked erratically under the virus's assault. The alien's eyes, those luminous voids, met hers with a flicker of something almost like pity, or was it triumph? "The Concordance adapts," he murmured, voice laced with that melodic arrogance. "You humans think in moments, it thinks in eternities." Before Elena could press further, alarms shrieked to life, not the empire-wide wails but a localized scream from deeper within. And the corridor seals slammed shut behind them with a hydraulic finality that trapped half her group outside. Tomas pounded on the barrier, his muffled shouts barely audible. But Elena waved him off. Split forces meant divided risks, or so she told herself, ignoring the knot of dread twisting in her stomach. Marcus clutched his bandaged arm, eyes wide with the terror of a kid realizing this wasn't a vid game, while Amara hacked at a nearby panel, her fingers flying over alien interfaces she'd studied in stolen moments aboard the shuttle. "The virus is holding, but something's fighting back," Amara grunted, sweat beading on her brow. "It's like the AIs. Evolving." Elena nodded, but her mind raced back to Javier's warnings in those final holocalls. His voice strained as he uncovered layers of Veyari deception. Not just conquest, but a symbiotic trap where the Concordance wasn't a tool but a parasite feeding on the Empire's collective psyche to maintain control. What if the AI had anticipated this rebellion, luring them here like rats to a maze? The thought chilled her as they pushed deeper. The corridors narrowing into a vein-like network glowing with faint emergency lumens. Sudden bursts of laser fire erupted from side passages. Veyari loyalists, not the elite guards but desperate. Functionaries armed with whatever they could scavenge their shots, wild and imprecise, a far cry from the precision Elena had faced in the initial invasion. One bolt grazed Amara's shoulder, searing flesh and drawing a sharp cry that echoed Elena's own suppressed pain. She fired back with the stolen plasma rifle, dropping to assailants in sprays of iridescent fluid, but each kill weighed heavier, reminders that these weren't faceless monsters but beings caught in the same web of dominance. "We can't keep this up," Marcus panted, reloading with shaking hands. "There are too many." Elena's jaw tightened. He was right, and the brutal choice loomed to press on and risk losing them all, or retreat and doom the uprising to fizzle. But retreat wasn't an option. The Resistance's sleeper cells across the galaxy were sinking their strikes to this moment, banking on the Archive's fall to shatter the Concordance's predictive grip. As they rounded a corner into a vast chamber lined with crystalline data nodes pulsing like hearts, the true turning point unveiled itself. A holographic interface flickered to life, projecting the Concordance's avatar, a serene androgynous figure woven from light, its voice a chorus that resonated in their bones. "Captain Reyes," it intoned, "your persistence is noted, but variables converge toward equilibrium." Elena froze. How did it know her name so intimately? Then the betrayal hit like a gut punch. Kale, their S patterns synced perfectly with the hologram S glow, revealing he'd been a conduit all along, not a captive but a willing link, feeding the AI real-time data through his biology. "You used me," she snarled, blade pressing deeper, but the administrator smiled faintly. "Loyalty to the greater order." In that instant, the chamber's defenses activated, automated turrets whirred from the ceiling, not firing lethally but deploying neural dampeners that flooded the air with a disorienting hum, sapping strength and clouding minds. Marcus dropped to his knees, clutching his head, while Amara slumped against a node, her hacking tool clattering away. Elena fought the haze, drawing on memories of Javier's death. The explosion's bloom replayed in her mind, fueling a surge of adrenaline that kept her upright. But the AI wasn't done. It projected visions into their thoughts, illusions of lost loved ones. For Marcus, his vaporized mother beckoning from a doorway. For Amara, her daughter's laughter echoing falsely. Elena saw Javier, whole and pleading for surrender, his eyes begging her to choose peace over this carnage. The emotional assault was brutal, exploiting humanity's supposed weakness, our bonds, our grief as weapons, turning courage into torment. "Yield," the Concordance urged, "and your species integrates. Resist, and extinction follows." Tears stung Elena's eyes, but she spat defiance, using the pain as an anchor. "You think you know us. Grief doesn't break humans, it rebuilds us." With a roar, she slammed her rifle butt into Kelther's side, disrupting his link just enough for the illusions to stutter. Amara, shaking off the daze, crawled to a node and injected a makeshift sabotage human innovation at its rawest, a cocktail of virus code laced with unpredictable algorithms drawn from Earth's chaotic history files, stories of guerrilla wars, and improbable comebacks. The chamber shuddered as the AI glitched, its avatar fracturing into digital static. But the stakes skyrocketed. Secondary protocols engaged, venting atmosphere from the outer corridors where Tomas's group waited, their screams cutting through comes before silence fell. Elena's heart fractured. More losses, more ghost butts. She pushed forward, dragging Marcus and Amara toward the core chamber. A new threat emerged as they breached the inner sanctum. A human traitor revealed in the flesh. Admiral Harlan, boss, one of the high-ranking sellouts who'd handed over the surrender codes now wired into the Concordance's throne-like interface, his eyes glowing with augmented fervor. "Elena," he rasped, voice modulated by Veyari tech. "Join us. Immortality awaits." The revelation gutted her. Voss had been Javier's superior, the one who'd sent him to that fatal summit. Betrayal layered upon betrayal, raising the existential dread. How deep did the corruption run? Humanity's suffering peaked here, in this chamber where the AI's core thrummed like a dying star, forcing Elena to confront the toughest decision: destroy it and risk cascading failures that could doom allied worlds, or corrupt it from within, gambling on human ingenuity to rewrite its code. As turrets targeted them anew and Voss unleashed a psychic barrage, Elena charged, blade raised, her scream a primal cry of resilience. Marcus fired, covering shots. Amara frantically coded overrides, but the tension coiled tighter. Would their sabotage hold? Or would the AI's glitch turn lethal, crushing the rebellion before it truly ignited? The core's hum intensified, fractures spiderwebbing across its surface, and in that razor-edge moment, Elena realized the true threat wasn't just the Empire, but the seductive pull of surrender, testing whether humanity's fire could outburn the void. The core chamber of the Grand Archive pulsed with a malevolent rhythm, the Concordance's fractured avatar flickering like a dying flame as Elena Reyes lunged forward, her stolen blade slashing through the air toward Admiral Harlan Voss, the traitor wired into the AI's throne like a puppet on ethereal strings. Voss's augmented eyes gleamed with unnatural light, his once familiar face twisted into a sneer of superiority, and he raised a hand crackling with energy, deflecting her strike with a force field that sent shockwaves rippling through her bones, nearly shattering her grip. Pain exploded up her arm, hot and unrelenting, but she did unfalter. Years of loss had taught her that agony was just another breath to push through. Behind her, Marcus fired desperate bursts from his plasma rifle, the shots sizzling against the chamber's defenses while Amara, blood seeping from her grazed shoulder, hammered at a secondary console, her voice a ragged chant of code overrides trying to force the virus deeper into the AI's neural net. But the Concordance fought back with terrifying intelligence, its glitched protocols adapting faster than any human could anticipate, sealing off escape routes with energy barriers that hummed like angry hives and venting toxic gases into the air, turning every inhale into a burning rasp. Elena's vision blurred at the edges, lungs screaming for clean oxygen, but she circled, Voss dodging arcs of psychic energy that clawed at her mind, dredging up buried horrors. Javier's final scream echoing in her skull, the cold void of space claiming his shuttle, the weight of every decision that led her here. "You were always too sentimental, Reyes," Voss taunted, his voice amplified by the machine, echoing off the crystalline walls. Javier begged for mercy in the end, said your name like a prayer. "But you're the reason he's ash." The words hit like shrapnel, tearing open scars she thought cauterized, and for a split second, doubt flooded in. Was this vengeance worth the graveyard of friends she'd built? Marcus cried out as a turret blast clipped his leg, dropping him to the floor in a heap. His young face contorted in pain, blood pooling beneath him like spilled hope. "Captain, I can't," he gasped, clutching the wound. And Elena's heart fractured further. He was just a kid, thrust into this hell because adults like her had failed to protect the stars. Amara rushed to him, tearing fabric for a tourniquet, but her movements were sluggish, the gas sapping her strength, her eyes haunted by the ghosts of her own losses. Outside the chamber, through fractured Selena, heard the siege intensifying. Tomas's voice crackling in desperation as Veyari reinforcements swarmed the plaza, their silver ships, blotting the sky like a funeral shroud, pounding the last human holdouts with orbital strikes. That shook the archive's foundations. Cracks spiderwebbed across the floor, debris raining from the ceiling, and Elena realized with gut-wrenching clarity that this was the Resistance's final gasp, their hidden bases across the galaxy falling one by one as the Concordance broadcasted countercodes turning human tech against its creators. Kelther slumped against a wall where she'd left him bound, laughed weakly, his bioluminescence fading. "See, your spirit breaks like all others. The Empire endures." But Elena refused to yield. shoving down the exhaustion that made her limbs leaden, the despair that whispered surrender. She feinted left, drawing Voss's fire, then rolled under a blast, closing the distance to slam her shoulder into his throne, the impact jarring her teeth but disrupting his link momentarily. The AI's avatar stuttered, revealing glimpses of its core code, a vast, impersonal web of predictions that had never accounted for human desperation. Yet even as Amara's sabotage gained ground, the Concordance initiated a fail-safe, a self-destruct sequence that would vaporize the archive and cascade through linked systems, dooming Xeranth Prime and every human on it, a Pyrrhic victory that would echo across the stars as a warning. Alarms blared, countdown holograms ticking down in merciless red, and Elena felt the psychological crush pinned between annihilation and defeat, her body battered, mind frayed by illusions that now showed not just Javier, but an entire lineage of human failures. From Earth's ancient wars to this cosmic humiliation, Marcus, pale and fading, reached for her hand. "Is this the end?" His voice was small, breaking, and Elena knelt beside him, ignoring the pain shooting through her knees, her own tears mixing with sweat. "Not while we breathe, kid." But inside, the limits pressed. Physical collapse loomed as her vision tunneled, the gas clawing her throat raw. Emotionally, the weight of command crushed her. Every death a stone on her chest, Amas's comes, had gone silent, the siege outside a slaughter. Trust fractured then. At the worst moment, Tamara, eyes wild with grief, hesitated at the console, her fingers hovering. "Elena, if we stop the destruct, the AI survives. But destroying it kills us all. My daughter. I can't." The admission hung heavy, a betrayal born of raw humanity, not malice, and Elena felt the isolation deepen, the moral gravity pulling her under. Voss seized the moment, offering a neural link. "Join me, rewrite the code from inside. Save them. Temptation, not immortality, peace, an end to the suffering." But it was a lie, a cage dressed to salvation. Elena stood, every muscle screaming protest, spirit the only thing unbroken, and charged again. Blade raised for a suicide strike at the core, knowing it might doom them but refusing to bow. The chamber trembled, countdown at 30 seconds. Barriers failing as Veyari forces breached the outer doors, lasers cutting through like judgment. Marcus whispered a final plea. Amara wept in indecision, and Elena's roar echoed her defiance. The absolute worst, converging, bodies failing, alliances cracking, hope a flickering ember against the void. Something had to change now, or humanity's fire would extinguish forever in this cold, alien heart. The countdown hologram blazed crimson in the core chamber, ticking down to 20 seconds as Elena Reyes hurled herself at the Concordance's throbbing heart, her blade gripped in blood-slicked hands, every fiber of her being screaming in defiance against the inevitable. Voss laughed maniacally from his wired throne, energy tendrils lashing out to ensnare her, but she twisted midair, fueled by the raw, unyielding spirit that had carried humanity through millennia of self-inflicted hells and cosmic indifference. Marcus lay crumpled, his breaths shallow, whispering "fight," like a mantra, while Amara froze at the console, her face a mask of shattered resolve, fingers trembling over the abort sequence that could save them but doom the rebellion. The air thickened with the whine of overloading systems, Veyari forces hammering at the breached doors, their silver-armored silhouettes visible through cracking barriers, and Elena knew this was the breaking point, humanity's last gasp, before alien downfall or eternal subjugation. Her blade arced down, aimed at the core's crystalline nexus, but as steel met energy, a surge of feedback ripped through her. Not pain, but a flood of data. Visions exploding in her mind like stars birthing in the void. The avatar stuttered Voss's taunts, cutting off mid-syllable, and the holographic figure reformed. Not the serene androgynous mask, but a face she thought lost forever. Javier, her husband, eyes warm and alive, smiling that crooked grin that once lit up their cramped quarters on the Endeavor. Elena, his voice echoed, not modulated, but pure, human, laced with regret and fierce love. Time seemed to fracture. She stumbled back, blade clattering, chest heaving as awe and disbelief warred within her. "No, you're dead." I saw the shuttle explode. But the avatar Javier shook his head, the chamber's chaos pausing as if the universe itself held its breath. "He faked it, mi amor. The betrayal ran deeper than you knew. Voss and the others sold us out, but I uncovered the truth during the summit. The Veyari didn't conquer us out of superiority, they did it out of fear." Amara gasped, snapping from her stupor, eyes widening in a mix of hope and horror, while Marcus lifted his head, pain forgotten in the shock. Kelther, still bound, let out a keening wail, his bioluminescence flaring in terror as the implications dawned. Javier's projection expanded, filling the chamber with cascading data streams, revealing classified Veyari archives unlocked by his embedded presence. It recontextualized everything eons ago. Humanity wasn't the primitive upstarts the Empire claimed. We were the progenitors, ancient explorers who seeded the galaxy with life, engineering species like the Veyari as caretakers for our distant colonies. But ambition twisted them, they rebelled, stealing our tech, burying our history, and building the Concordance on pilfered human AI designs to predict and suppress any resurgence. The invasion wasn't expansion. It was containment, a desperate bid to chain the creators before we awoke to our potential. Elena's knees buckled. Vengeance surging alongside a tidal wave of UHR species was unjust resilient survivors, scraping by in the stars. We were the architects, the dangerous force that empires trembled before. They knew. Javier continued, his voice steady but edged with the pain of years in hiding, wired into the machine as a ghost in the code. The Concordance's predictions always showed humanity rising, defying logic, rewriting reality through sheer will. So they struck first, underestimating that I'd infiltrate. Waiting for you to trigger the back door, Voss thrashed in his throne, augmented eyes bulging in fear. Lies! The order is eternal. But Javier's essence, merged with the AI, overrode him. Neural tendrils retracting as the countdown halted at 5 seconds, the self-destruct fizzling into harmless sparks. Amara rushed to the console, fingers flying now with renewed purpose, syncing her virus to Javier's command, and the chamber hummed with a new energy human defiance amplified through the machine. Outside, comes crackled back to life, Tomas's voice, alive and triumphant, reporting Veyari ships faltering as empire-wide systems glitched. The Concordance broadcasting not orders but revelations, exposing the alien's stolen legacy to every conquered world. Kelther slumped, patterns dimming to resignation. We were made by you. Servants turned tyrants, his voice cracked with regret, the superior facade crumbling into awestruck dread. Marcus pushed himself up, wincing but grinning through tears. We're gods! Elena shook her head, pulling him close, emotions roiling fear of this vast truth, regret for the years lost mourning, Javier. But above all, a blazing hope that ignited like a supernova. No kid, we're human, and that's scarier. Javier's avatar reached out, a holographic hand brushing hers in a phantom touch that sent warmth flooding back, mending the hollow in her soul. I've been rewriting the laws here, Elena. The AI's core is ours, now again hunger. It predicts not submission, but uprising. Watch. With a thought, he unleashed it across Xeranth Prime. Human captives rose en masse, energy cuffs shattering as the Concordance fed them tactical data, turning labor moons into fortresses of rebellion. Veyari overseers fled in panic, their perfect fleets crippled by cascading failures, silver holes blooming with explosions as hidden human code planted generations ago and stolen to captivated. The twist flipped the galaxy. Aliens weren't conquerors, they were thieves cowering from their makers, and humanity's weaknesses, emotions, chaos, bonds were the keys to unlocking godlike dominion. Elena felt it surge through her, a visceral fuck yeah moment as she grabbed her blade, standing tall amid the awe. Voss screamed as Javier purged him from the system, his body convulsing in final regret, while Amara laughed through sobs. Vengeance for her daughter crystallized in this revelation. The doors burst open, not with enemies but Alistimus and survivors storming in, eyes wide at the transformed chamber. Captain, what is this? Tomas breathed, hope dawning. Elena met Javier's gaze, love rekindled in the fire of revolution. The truth, we're not just fighting back, we're taking what's ours. As the Concordance, now a hybrid of human spirit and alien might, pulsed with new purpose. Broadcasting calls to arms across stars, the Veyari Empire cracked, their downfall sealed by the very force they'd feared, humanity's unbreakable, dangerous essence. Fear turned to awe among the team, regret for lost time fueling unyielding vengeance, and hope blazed brightest. The progenitors had returned, ready to reshape the cosmos in their defiant image. The core chamber thrummed with reborn fury as Javier's presence woven into the Concordance like a living flame unleashed humanity's hidden legacy across every Veyari network, turning their stolen empire into a blazing funeral pyre of their own arrogance. Elena Reyes stood at the heart of it all, chest heaving, blade still dripping iridescent blood, eyes locked on the holographic image of the man she'd mourned for years. The countdown was dead, the self-destruct aborted. But the war wasn't over. It was just beginning, and the real climax roared toward them like a solar storm. Outside the archive, the sky over Xeranth Prime split with fire human sleeper cells, long buried in labor moons and maintenance shafts, rising in coordinated fury, seizing orbital defenses and turning Veyari guns on their silver fleets. Tomas's voice crackled over restored comms, hoarse with disbelief and triumph. Captain, the bastards are running. Their ships are scattering half, the fleet just went dark. Elena allowed herself one ragged breath of hope, then turned to her broken team. Marcus, pale and bleeding but alive, pushed himself upright against a shattered console, teeth gritted in a feral grin. Amara wiped tears and blood from her face, fingers already dancing across the interface Javier had opened for her, feeding the rewritten AI fresh streams of human code, chaotic, emotional, gloriously unpredictable. Even Kelthar, the once haughty administrator, knelt in stunned silence, his bioluminescence dimmed to a trembling glow of surrender and awe. But the Empire wasn't finished. Deep beneath the capital, the Veyari High Conclave ancient overlords, who had hidden behind the Concordance for centuries, activated their final protocol, a psionic dampening field designed to crush the progenitor spark they feared since the rebellion millennia ago. The air grew heavy, oppressive, as invisible waves slammed into every human mind on the planet, trying to smother the fire that had just ignited. Elena staggered, vision tunneling, memories of Javier flickering out like candles in wind. Marcus collapsed again, screaming as phantom pain clawed his thoughts. Amara clutched her head, whispering her daughter's name over and over. Across the world, uprisings faltered, captives dropping weapons, fighters freezing mid-charge. Javier's avatar wavered, his voice strained. "They're trying to erase us, to make us forget who we are." Elena tasted blood where she'd bitten her tongue, rage boiling hotter than the suppression field. She forced herself forward, one agonizing step at a time, until she reached the core nexus, a towering crystal lattice pulsing with stolen human light. "Then we remind them," she growled, voice raw but unbreakable. She slammed her palm against the lattice, not with tech or code, but with memory, every searing moment of loss, every defiant laugh shared in the dark, every stubborn refusal to bow. Javier met her there, inside the machine, their minds linking in a way no Veyari could comprehend. Not cold logic, but the messy, blazing force of love and grief and hope. Together they pushed, not as individuals, but as humanity, to old parents, children, traitors, heroes, all the beautiful contradictions that made the species dangerous. The psionic field cracked. First a hairline fracture, then a thunderous snap that echoed through every skull on Xeranth Prime. Captives straightened. Fighters roared. The dampening wave reversed, amplified by the Concordance's new allegiance, slamming back into the Conclave's hidden bunker with the full weight of awakened progenitors. Elena felt the feedback surge into Veyari minds, engineered for order and longevity, shattering under the chaotic storm of human emotion they'd never been built to withstand. Screams echoed across the network, not human, but alien, as centuries of carefully maintained superiority crumbled in seconds. The silver fleets above fractured, some captains surrendering, others fleeing into hyperspace, their perfect formations dissolving into panicked retreat. On the surface, labor moons erupted in celebration and vengeance, humans storming command centers, tearing down the symbols of subjugation. In the chamber, the lattice blazed white-hot, then settled into a steady, warm gold the color of Earth's sun. Javier whispered. Voss's corpse slumped lifeless from the throne, purged and forgotten. Kelthar bowed his head fully, whispering, "We were wrong. You were always the storm." Elena pulled Marcus to his feet, steadying him as Amara joined them. The three survivors embracing amid the glowing ruins, tears cutting clean tracks through grime and blood. Javier's hologram solidified further, reaching out as if to touch her cheek. "I couldn't come back sooner," he said softly, regret heavy in his voice. "Had to wait until you were close enough to finish it together." She nodded, throat tight. "We did." The main conflict ended not with a single explosion or heroic sacrifice, but with the roar, humanity's collective, defiant roar rolling across the galaxy as liberated worlds linked comes. Voices rising in languages old and new, singing, shouting, weeping. The Veyari Empire didn't just fall, it knelt, forced to confront the creators it had betrayed. Some would resist, pockets of diehard loyalists fleeing to dark corners of space, but the heart was broken, the lie exposed. Elena looked out through the archive's shattered viewport at a sky no longer dominated by silver tyrants, but streaked with human ships rising from hidden berths, sleek scarred, beautiful in their imperfection. She felt the weight lift, not gone, but shared now among billions awakening to their birthright. Marcus leaned on her shoulder, whispering, "We won, Captain. We actually won." Amara smiled through exhaustion, murmuring, "For the ones we lost." Elena squeezed Javier's holographic hand, the connection warm and real enough. "And for the ones we'll raise free." The climax wasn't a clean victory. It was gritty, earned in blood and grief, an unbreakable spirit. Humanity didn't ascend to godhood, we simply remembered we'd never stopped being the force that shaped stars. And as the first free sunrise in years painted Xeranth Prime's spires, Elena Reyes stood with her family blood and chosen and let the roar echo one final time. A promise to the galaxy. Underestimating humans had always been the last mistake anyone ever made. Years after the roar that shattered the Veyari Empire, Elena Reyes stood on the rebuilt observation deck of Xeranth Prime, Grand Archive now rechristened the Concordance. Spyrand watched a mixed fleet of human and reformed alien ships glide through the golden dawn sky. The spires below no longer gleamed with cold silver arrogance. They were wrapped in living greenery hauled from a dozen reclaimed worlds, vines and blossoms turning the once sterile capital into something warm, chaotic, and unmistakably human. The war hadn't ended. Cleanly pockets of diehard Veyari loyalists still skirmished in the outer rims, and rebuilding trust between species took blood, tears, and more patience than anyone thought possible. But the heart of the tyranny was gone, replaced by something better, something earned. Elena's hair had gone silver at the temples, lines etched deep around her eyes from nights she still spent chasing ghosts. But she stood straighter now, the weight of command shared instead of carried alone. Marcus, no longer the terrified kid from the shuttle, leaned on the railing beside her, prosthetic leg glinting in the light, laughing as he pointed out a squadron of pilots performing reckless barrel rolls. He'd grown into a fleet commander himself, sharp and fearless, but with the same stubborn kindness that had kept him alive that day in the core chamber. Amara walked up behind them, slower now, her once cracked spectacles replaced by sleek implants, carrying a holopad glowing with the latest xenobiology reports. She'd spent the intervening years leading the reconciliation efforts, cataloging Veyari culture not to exploit it, but to understand how servants became tyrants and how tyrants could become partners. Her daughter's name was etched on every memorial garden across the liberated worlds, a quiet promise that no child would grow up in chains again. Kelthar, of all people, had become an unlikely bridge's bioluminescence, steady and calm these days, serving as cultural liaison, teaching young humans and Veyari alike the shared history the Empire had tried to bury. Redemption wasn't easy. Some humans never forgave, some Veyari never repented, but enough did that the galaxy breathed freer. Javier's presence lingered in the Concordance itself, no longer a ghost trapped in code, but a willing guardian, his consciousness woven into the network that now linked hundreds of worlds in voluntary alliance. He couldn't touch her anymore, couldn't share a quiet cup of replicated coffee on a Martian morning, but late at night, Elena would sit in the Spire's heart and talk to him anyway about the rebuilding of Earth's polluted oceans, the first joint colonies on verdant exoplanets, the way children of both species played together without fear. His voice, warm and teasing, would answer from the walls, and for a moment the years apart felt shorter. They'd answered every burning question in the end. Humanity hadn't left Earth forever. We'd brought it with US seeds, soil stories, stubborn hope planting blue on green patches on worlds that had never known rain. We didn't ascend to untouchable godhood. We stayed messy, emotional, gloriously flawed, and that raw humanity became the glue holding the new alliance together. The Veyari learned that order without heart was brittle. Humans learned that defiance without compassion could turn us into the very monsters we fought. Together, we evolved not into something perfect, but into something resilient, something real. Elena's final mission had been simple: escort the last refugee fleet back to Sol. She stood on the bridge of the refitted Endeavour, watching Mars swell in the viewport, red dust giving way to vast, terraformed oceans, and sprawling Earth hung beside it, no longer the scarred relic of corporate greed, but a living jewel. Clouds swirling over continents rewelded by generations who refused to let the cradle of the species die. Marcus commanded the escort wing, Amara oversaw the cultural exchange programs, settling on Luna's rebuilt domes, and Javier's voice guided navigation from the ship's core. They didn't speak much on that last approach. Words felt too small. When the shuttle touched down on the shores of New Madrid, Alana's childhood home, now a thriving coastal city, she stepped onto soil that smelled of salt and possibility. Javier's projection walking beside her in a body of light. They planted a tree together, roots from old Earth stock, and watched children human Veyari and half a dozen other species chase each other through the waves. That was the legacy. Not conquest, not domination, but the quiet, fierce determination to build something worth passing on. Humanity's roar had echoed across the stars, toppling an empire built on lies. But the true victory was softer, the laughter of kids who would never know shackles. The alliances forged in shared grief and shared joy, the knowledge that when everything else fails, humans choose to stand up, reach out, and keep going. Elena sat under that tree years later, older, content. Javier's light flickering gently beside her as the sun set over a peaceful ocean. She whispered the same words she'd spoken in the shuttle hold all those decades ago. Chaos, ISNT, weakness. It's the space where miracles happen. And out there among the stars, billions of voices, human and alien alike, live the proof. The story of alien resistance, human evolution, and sci-fi redemption wasn't written in grand battles alone. It was written in every ordinary day we chose to make better than the last. Did this story hit you as hard as it hit us? What would you do in humanity's final hour? Drop your ideas for the next HFY story below.